So with no further ado, I'm going to start the presentation and talk you through what we're going to be doing today. So here we go. And then I just need a nod from somebody to say, probably my colleague Jacob here, that the presentation is coming through. We got it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so today you're going to be hosted by myself, Mark House, and Jacob also from RM. We were both teachers. Now we're working here, which is sort of relevant to this particular call. So what we're going to be doing over the next half an hour or so, well, we're going to talk a little bit about the problem that we're trying to solve. Then we're going to do a demonstration, and I need everybody on the call to pray to the demonstration gods that this live demonstration is going to hold up. Okay. And then we're going to talk about what next, and then hopefully how you might want to get involved. Now, RM Compare on Demand has a number of uses. There's a number of different things you can do with it, but we're going to zero in on one particular problem today, and that'll help us to focus for the next half an hour. And the problem we've chosen to look at, and this is the one actually where most of our current partners, okay, are currently focused into, is the challenge of sharing and securing learners' performance standards across schools. That could be across organizations, but it's where we need people on the ground to understand the standard outside the four walls of their school, possibly outside their local environment, and particularly looking at maybe national or international standards. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce Jacob now. Jacob will tell you a bit more about his background. But Jacob, you have lived this. You have actually lived this this challenge, haven't you?
Absolutely.
So let me just stop sharing just for a second to bring Jacob on, and then we'll come back to this in just a moment. Okay, so hi, Jacob.
Hello.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your background as a teacher?
Yeah, so I was a secondary school English teacher for about 6 years in a variety of different comprehensive schools in the Reading area. And yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic experience. Joined RM about 2 years ago. I've still, in terms of my sort of involvement in the teaching world, I still teach once a fortnight, just GCSE English essentially. But yeah, six happy years in teaching.
So you're well placed then to help us to understand a little bit from the user perspective about this challenge of understanding the standard.
Yeah.
Why is it important when you're teaching English, or why was it important for you to be able to have confidence to understand the standard of work you were looking at? And did you feel confident?
Yeah, I think it's sort of at various different stages of my career, I felt various different stages of confidence. But I think the fundamental thing underpinning all of this is all of the students that were in front of me and the variety of different classes I had. I was acutely aware that at some point they were going to have to do a summative exam to those standards. So it's incredibly important that we were aware, that the students were aware of what the standards were, and in general that teachers throughout their development were able to have a good understanding of the standard. I'm not always sure that was the case though.
So within your sort of school, you obviously had some sort of moderation type procedure taking place, I assume. I mean, there'll be plenty of people on this call who will know what that is, but can you just remind them how that sort of worked in your school, where you use those to understand what the standard of the work was?
Yeah, so obviously in a summative exam for, say, AQA is our examining body for GCSE English, when the papers are done in the summative exam, they go off to an examiner, which the schools have no involvement with. But in the meantime, it's the teacher's responsibility to mark the work of their students. So whether that's kind of a half-termly assessment or whether it's kind of a mock examination, it was the teacher's responsibility to do that. Now, obviously, teachers have relationships with the students that are in front of them. They know them, they know their handwriting, they know what kind of a student they are, and that will undoubtedly influence how they mark their work.
So you took a look at your work, and then after school, I assume
Yeah.
a bunch of colleagues, you then looked at each other's work. Is that what you did?
100%, yeah. So it was then down to kind of sometimes it would be the lead of key stage 3 and key stage 4 to look at them. But what often happened was kind of a round table of all the teachers, say 10 or so teachers in the department, with the head of department,
Okay.
looking at a script and moderating it.
So that helped you within your school. What about schools in your neighborhood? Did you get a chance to sort of do the similar thing with the schools in your neighborhood?
I mean, a head of department might go to other schools in a multi-academy trust, for example, but that was a real rarity.
And obviously beyond that, out sort of to other parts of the country or whatever, then I guess unless you had friends and colleagues, it was much more difficult, was it?
Yeah, almost impossible.
Okay, so you did a little bit of comparative judgment, didn't you, to sort of help? Okay, and I think you said you quite enjoyed that, but there were a few challenges in running comparative judgment that you found. Do you want to take us through some of those?
Yeah, so on the one side, obviously comparative judgment, sort of the thing I always says, it just kind of makes sense. It felt a lot more natural to me to be able to say this is better than this, as opposed to making absolute judgments on a particular piece of work. There's problems with that though. The uploading takes time. It's difficult to scale. You might run, and there are lots of fantastic educators out there running these kind of comparative judgment sessions, but they often take kind of weeks to run. And the reality is that once the session's done, yes, you have the reports, and yes, you might have the items in the system, but you don't have the ability to really use that session again unless you run a session again, which comes along with all the sort of logistical challenges that I mentioned just a second ago. So fantastic process for marking work, but something that was, it could be a little bit taxing for individuals, and teachers are time tight as it is.
Okay, perfect. So that's so helpful, Jacob. Thank you for sort of doing that. We'll just head back to the presentation now. So, when we're looking at products, certainly in Compare, we're very focused on the end user, and we're very focused on the problems that they're able to express. There, that for Jacob, there's a bit of a challenge there, and we think that by taking perhaps a slightly different look at comparative judgment, we might be able to help out in this particular issue as an example. So this is where we've moved on to this concept of comparative judgment on demand. It does sort of, well, it says on the tin really, it's that ability to be able to take a comparative approach, but do it when you're ready. So as Jacob says, you haven't got the setup and you haven't got to wait weeks until the window opens or the window closes. You can do it when it's best for you. This is important because it enables you more choice in pedagogical approach and curriculum approach. And we know that particularly pedagogy and curriculum is context specific, and therefore it's important that the teachers have flexibility around that rather than trying to necessarily shape the curriculum and the pedagogy to meet the assessment window. So one of our guiding sort of lights, or one of the people we definitely have benefited from here, is Professor Richard Kimball, and he's had some thoughts on this for many years, and he's listened to lots and lots of teachers such as Jacob, and his sort of view on this is, well, wouldn't it be much simpler if teachers had, as a matter of normal practice, access to and familiarity with, that's a key sentence, familiarity with, work from a national sample of schools, not just in their own classroom. And I think, Jacob, I think that you would agree that that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've taken a look at this and we've said, well, if we could use what we have at the moment, which is adaptive comparative judgment, which takes items and then puts them into a rank. What we want to be able to do is to flip that rank into a ruler so that people like Jacob can then put their items against it and use it whenever they want. And that's the sort of principle that we're doing here. So I'm going to take my life into my hands now, and I'm going to share my screen, okay? And we're going to try and demonstrate this in a bit of a live environment. So here goes. Let me just come across here. And again, relying on Jacob a little bit to tell me that we can see my screen there, Jacob. We got it?
Yep, can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So let me get to the right one, this one here. So as a reminder, first of all, we're just going to log into RM Compare here, and we're just going to go over some basic understanding of that first bit of what Compare does and how it sort of builds rank orders. I'm assuming that lots of people on the call do have knowledge of comparative judgment, but there might be a few people who don't. So this will just take a few moments or two. So in the comparative judgment world, okay, the experience is where instead of measuring against a rubric, we're going to look at a couple of items and we're going to make a judgment based on what we call a holistic statement. So in this case, there's a couple of art journals, and these ones are actually multi-page journals. Compare will take video, it'll take audio, it'll take lots of different things. And what I'm going to do as a judge, I'm going to look at these two items. If I want, I can zoom in, I can zoom out. There's lots of different ways that I can use the software to help me. And when I'm ready, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to say, I think that's the best. And if I want, I can be asked to explain why I think one is the best, so we get a bit more understanding. So it's a very simple process, very engaging. Teachers and other assessors enjoy doing it, and that's sort of it. So what does that mean then? Well, we've got one at the bottom here. It's called the James Rank Order session. If you sign up for the free plan and RM, you get access to these two sessions at the bottom here, so you can take a look at them. And in this particular one, there were 131 items, and there were 36 judges who were doing the process that I just demonstrated. And what happens is, by doing that simple comparative judgment process, what happens is that we're able to create a rank order, because some of the items win a lot and some of the items lose a lot, and that's how we get this rank order. And we don't just know that one item is better than another, we know how much it's better than another, and there's lots and lots of value and interesting stuff in this. But this isn't the purpose of this particular call. But if you go to the Compare website, then you'll see all this sort of stuff here. And we have lots of people who use this in lots of really interesting, sort of amazing ways. But by taking that process, you can see that we've now got a rank order. Okay, so if you remember, the next bit is that we need to turn that into a ruler. So I'm going to go into a slightly different environment here, because you'll see at the top here that there's one at the top here that we've got a little button that now says use as a ruler. So this is the sort of release that we are currently running. I've got a session here that I've done already. So this particular session has got a rank order, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to flip that into a ruler. So if I come back here now, and if I click on use as a ruler, you'll see there's no rulers available, none at all. But as an administrator, what I'm able to do is say, right, this session here, I've got a rank order that I'm happy with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share that as a ruler. There is a compliance sign off here, which is around the data you're going to share outwards. If I'm going to share that as a ruler, oops, agree to comply would be handy, wouldn't it? If I could spell. Let's do that. Share the ruler. That's done. So now if I come on to use a ruler, you'll see that the ruler's appeared. So, you know, we know it's pretty simple to generate the rulers, and the anticipation is there'd be a bunch of these rulers here. But in this particular case, we're doing some English assessment. That's what we're doing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a name for it. So I'll put the same in here. I'm going to save the changes, and I'm going to put some of my own items in to assess against this ruler. And in this case, I'm going to choose some items that I've used before, but it's really easy to upload different stuff into the system. You sort of throw stuff at the page that you just now saw. I'll add that in. In this case, there's a bunch of sort of work here, and now we're ready to go. So I'm going to hit this, and what's happened is that on the left-hand side of the screen is an item that I put into the system, and on the right-hand side of the screen is going to be an item from the ruler. Now, at the moment, we're currently in a beta phase, and in this beta phase, we're using a matching process to compare the items. As we'll talk about later, we're going to move on from this a little bit as part of the project, but right now it's a matching process. So I'm going to click Get Started, and on the left here, I've got a piece of work, and at the top, you know, I can look at the the holistic statement. And my job is to think, okay, so what I know about the ruler is, do I think that this piece of work is going to be a very good piece of work based on this holistic statement? Is it going to be in the middle? Is it at the bottom? And I'm just going to have a guess because I don't really know. Or I might have an informed guess. I might be quite confident and go, yeah, I think against the standard, and this standard might be a national standard. It could be one within a multi-academy trust. It could be within a school. But let's say, for example, this is a national standard. I'm going to say nationally, I think this piece of work is sort of at this level. And what it will do is it'll bring up a piece of work from the standard. And now I can look across and I can go, oh, you know what? I think my work is a bit better than that, or it's not so good. Some of our partners put annotations on these pieces of work to help the teacher to really focus in on what they should be looking at. In this particular case, we haven't done that. We've just left a very raw piece of work, which in a way encourages a higher cognitive load on the teacher, but I'm already getting an understanding. What I'm able to do then is to feather up and down a little bit until I find a piece of work that I think is roughly the same standard as my piece of work. Okay. Once I've got that piece of work, I can say, yep, I think that's about the same standard. And if I want, I can put a comment in today. Please excuse my comments. I'm in a bit of a hurry. Okay, but you get the idea. You can put this in. What it will do then, if you notice, this piece of work is sort of stayed, but the second piece of work has now surfaced. I've got some understanding of this one because of the work I did on the first match, and it should mean my second match is now perhaps a little bit quicker. And again, if there are any English teachers on this call, please forgive me again, because I'm probably making the most appalling matches here because I just don't know what I'm doing. Okay, but I'm going to say, well, that's a match there, and I'm going to match that one there, and I'll put no feedback on that one. And we carry on again, but we can see this one here, for example, even myself as a non-expert English teacher is probably going to be head down towards the bottom a little bit. And I'm going, I need to find something down the bottom here. Oh, here we go. Now we're getting down somewhere, which is a similar sort of standard as this one here. Oh, it's the same one on there. And I'm going to click on here and I'll click match. Now we'll come on. Okay. And we got another one. And I'm going to say that one is. So, and that's it. I'm done. So what have we ended up with then? Okay, so from that simple process, what's happened here is that I now have some understanding. I know that Lisa is a bit better than Millhouse, but I know that Millhouse is quite a lot better than Rod, and Rod is a bit better than Nelson. So I've got some view within my students of their relative ability, but crucially, I've also now got an idea where they are against the standard. So if this was a national standard, I get an idea when Nelson is against the national standard or Lisa is against the national standard. And I've also got some sort of feedback things at the bottom here. And if I want to, I can go back and take a look at the ruler items or my own items to get a further understanding. All of the data is exportable. So what I could do is use this ruler again, maybe after I've carried out an intervention. I could come back again later and carry an intervention to see if there's any progress against the ruler. And we're seeing lots of different uses for this tool at the moment. So that's sort of where we are right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing and go back to the presentation now. So I'll stop that. Okay, and I'll just present my presentation again. Oops. Come back on here. And again, Jake, if you can nod when the presentation comes back on. Hey, we're doing okay here. All right, so what you just now saw in the demonstration was this sort of four-stage process, didn't you? You were able to see me essentially assume that I had some items. There was a rank, okay? The rank became a ruler. We very quickly flipped that out, and then somebody like Jacob or somebody in a similar position was able to use that ruler to get an idea of the standard, and then hopefully be able to do a much better job at helping the students on the other end, or whether they're in a marking capacity or an assessing capacity. We're encouraging that tacit knowledge of standards by the teacher. It's sort of, there's so many different use cases for it because compare can take any type of information in almost. And we're just at the start of this journey, but we're getting real high levels of interest and traction amongst groups all over the world on this at the moment. Okay, So what's sort of next then for us? Okay. As I mentioned, we've currently got this beta on demand and the manual matching. That is currently fully in production. It's available, it's being used. And if there's anybody on this call who is interested in learning more about it, get in touch. We're very keen to work with people on this particular project. Next up, we're heading towards using the adaptive algorithm. And this will be less of matching, but more of saying one thing is better than the other. Okay, so that's where we're going next. And then a bit further on, we think that this will lend itself to maybe more group assessment, maybe more summative type assessment, because we're in a very formative space at the moment. And that's where we're thinking about where it will possibly end up later. But we're learning fast. We're extremely encouraged with the way that things are going at the moment. And that's where we are right now. So if that has piqued your interest, okay, then we're keen to hear from you. And the way that you can get involved is as follows. If you go to rm.com, okay, assessment, you'll find your way to the RM Compare on Demand page. And within there is a sign-up sheet, okay, and you can just ask to get in touch. You can find myself, or you can find Jacob on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And after this call, we will be sending out a recording of this and some opportunities for you to get in touch. If you head to the compare.rm site, there is actually a way that you can interact with this, and I'm just going to show you that now. Okay, so to show you how you can try this for yourself. This has involved me going to share the screen again, so I'm just going to share across back to my other screen. And Jacob, if you can just give me a bit of a nod when that arrives again. Got it? Perfect. Okay, so when you come to compare.rm.com, if I click on Find Out More, and then I click on Introduction to CJ On Demand, it takes you to the CJ On Demand page. And at the bottom here, you'll see an interactive area where you can try it. So I'll just demonstrate it now, where you can do it. You can share this with your colleagues and help other people what we've done in this call. So what it does, it gives a bit of walkthrough, and this is a bit of a sort of a recap on what I showed you a little while ago. So what I can do is I can say, well, what rulers are available? And what's quite nice is it gives two use cases at the moment. So let's choose one that we haven't done on today's call. Let's choose an oral presentation in this case. And what I'm going to do is it'll say, well, let's put some work in. It's all done for us on this walkthrough, and let's get started. Same as we saw on the demonstration, the live demo. But in this particular case, in this particular case, what it's got is we've got somebody talking to camera. Now, we are actually working with the National Oracy Charity, who are Voice 21, and we're currently working on them on an Oracy project. But the principle is sort of similar again. On the left-hand side of the screen is a student that I wish to assess. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to access images from the ruler, okay, which have been set perhaps by Voice 21. So this would be like a national standard. And I'm going to put my matches in. Brings up my next candidate. I can again take a look up and down the ruler until I find a candidate that I think is a similar standard of Oracy that I'm using. Same thing again, I'm going to make my match. One more. So, and then we get a report which is similar to the one we saw a moment ago. So I can now see how each item performed against the other items in the session, how each item performed against a standardized ruler, and any notes recorded against items as part of the matching process. So that's it, really. That's our sort of presentation for today. We're going to keep it really short today. Hopefully that was interesting. If you would like to know more, please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. But for now, thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much.